Hey everybody, welcome back to the Money-ish Show with your host, Andrew Cordell. I'm here with a great friend, local guy from Utah. I love to jive with because he talks about money nonstop. His actual a company is called moneyripples.com, which I actually love that name because the rippled effect of money and how it affects you. Chris Miles is the CEO and founder of Money Ripples. As you guys know, I do a podcast here, but this guy is just releasing his 600th episode on his podcast, going in his 8th season of his podcast. So it makes me feel like I got to step up my game and do more podcasts for you guys. I always try to bring in a guest who I think can help you guys where you're at in your business right now as an entrepreneur, obviously understands that world, but also in the financial world. And he's kind of the anti-mainstream media financial advice that you hear from the time that we were kids. And so we'll break this down with him as today as we go on the show. He's also author of 2 different books, co-authored one and then wrote one himself as well. Has been featured all over next works like Fox News and that other company that I can't think of their name right now that has 3 letters, starts with a C and ends with an N, them as well. On that note, I'm going to introduce Chris Miles. Thanks for coming on the show, Chris.
Hey man, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming in. I do really enjoy talking to you. I was on your show like a year ago.
Yeah.
And right kind of in the middle of, I think, kind of COVID, right? It was about that time, right?
Right about that time.
Right in the middle of COVID. And you had me on the show, and I was in Georgia at the time. I think you were in Utah, but a different place.
Yep.
And I connected with you then because of your show. You were one of the very few people that can actually talk money like nonstop. Of how it works.
Dude, he won't shut up.
Yeah,
Come on.
well, most of the time, people, it's a topic that even if you have money and you've made several million, doesn't actually mean you always understand all the ins and outs of money.
Right.
And
it's like some players
literacy.
Can't be coaches,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
Yeah. It's a great point. I use that point all the time trying to help entrepreneurs and real estate investors out. So normally the show, I always start talking about what you do in your business and so forth and entrepreneurship. And at the end of the show, we do the money is sign, which is the answer. But on this episode, I want to do a little bit different because I have a guy that's expert on the topic of money. And so I actually want to do a little bit different. I actually want to do the money is sign first and get your answer on that. And then I want to kind of use that answer as it plays out in the show and actually see how this goes actually for the viewers, myself, and see if it actually creates a better format of an episode here with you. So I'm going to experiment here with you and use you as a guinea pig. So I hope you don't mind. But
let's roll with it.
I just thought, dude, you're a guy that can talk money nonstop. And so it's a great, sometimes people, like I said, can't talk money. So we do it at the end of the show, where it's only like the last 10 minutes. But with you, we're going to do it different.
Let's do it.
Because you're an expert on money. So we got the money is show sign here. You guys know I make all these signs and you walk through kind of the Hall of Fame of entrepreneurs that have all their answers out there. So I'm going to give this to Chris. He's going to answer what money means to him. Money is blank. He'll put his answer there. Chris, you sign it right here, and then hand this back to me.
You got it.
And then we're going to talk about money for the rest of the episode here. While he's doing that, guys, again, make sure you check out moneyripples.com, as well as hit him up on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. They're all the same. They're at Money Ripples. He has a ton of just practical, usable advice for people that are looking for a different answer than what we're told every day at the typical places that are out there. So make sure you guys hit him up on moneyripples.com as well as at moneyripples on all the social media platforms. I heard you're a big dancer on TikTok. You dance money, right?
See, that was so 20 years, 20 pounds ago, back in those days.
Here we go, man. Chris Miles, the CEO of Money Ripples. His answer is money is soul magnifier. Money is a soul magnifier. So, Chris, let's talk about that. Just kind of start the show off. When you say the words, it's a great answer. And when you say the word soul magnifier, what does that mean to you? Why do you say that?
Yeah, money doesn't make people good or bad. It doesn't make them any better, any worse. It just makes you more of who you already were, right?
Yep.
So it says magnifier of the soul, right? So if you are a great person, money can make you an amazing person. If you are a crappy person, you're just gonna be a lot crappier, right? So when people say, I'm afraid that money's gonna ruin my children. It's like, trust me, if that were the case, your children were already ruined in the first place. And who do they get to look to? I mean, so that's what it is. It just makes you more of who you already are.
So I want to dive a little bit deeper with this answer here with you because you used a word that was very unique that no one, I know no one's given the answer before. So I've had people give the answer, money is a magnifier, money is a revealer, money is an amplifier.
Yeah.
So I've had to use that word, and that answer is just spot on. It is dead on accurate when you talk about a magnifying glass, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I feel a need to talk about this first word you said. You said the word not just magnifier. You said it's a soul magnifier.
Right.
Why did you put the word soul first there?
Because it really brings out what's inside of you, right? Like the last recession. I mean, such a great time. Like when things were going scarce, and when people get in that mode, the worst of people can come out, right? And a lot of times it's already there. It's not like it created something new. It was there. That seed was there. It just had to be really watered, had to be nurtured, right? And that's what happens. And so when you have, whether it's more money or less, right? The fact that money is just a magnifier of whatever's already inside of you, it brings it out.
Yeah. I think it's true because I think, there's these things called business core values that people have, right?
Yep.
And I used to always, when I started a company, I had to lay out my core values of the company, and but I don't know, man. Lately I've been on this journey more about there's just human values that we have as humans. Yeah. And I think our human values are extremely important to understand, and actually understand what your core human values belief system, if you will, is as a person. And when you said the word soul magnifier, that's what I kind of thought of. It's that deep internal, when there are no cameras, there's nothing, there's no fame, there's no publicity. It's just who you are as a person. Yeah. That core inside of you. And if you take that as that and call that the soul, just the inner core of you that makes up you and what you believe. And I don't mean believe in even religion or faith. I mean just believe as a human on planet Earth. And then you put the word magnifier to it, and I think those two are very, very synonymous when it comes to money. Yeah. And when you don't have money, and I've been in a position I didn't have money. Yeah. If you're a person that you don't have money but you continually try to help others, when you have money, you will just do more of that. That's right. That's what you're gonna go do. Yep. It's not gonna change a direction of your life, right? And when you don't have money, if you are not a person that just naturally tries to help and give and donate and find things that you can go do, when you have money, I don't care how many times you tell yourself, well, one day I'm gonna do this, you actually won't. That day will actually never show up. That's right. Because it's not who you are. You need to go reset that soul and find that true human value, and then allow money to magnify, because money will magnify it. It will magnify it, one way or the other. Good and the bad. Yeah, it's kind of like the lottery tickets. Yeah. When you see these people win lottery tickets, right? Yeah. Or you can compare to sport athletes, right? I mean, how many times, I was reading a stat recently that said 95% of NFL football players go broke after 5 years of being out of the NFL. Yeah. And part of it is just because someone gives you money, or I should say you earned it as your pay, right? I'm not saying it's given to you, but you earned this money, and it's a lot of money. It does not mean you understand money, though. No. Those are two different things, right? That's why you got to do it first. You got to be a better person 100%. First before you have the money. You got to learn how to use money before you have the money. Right? So let's talk about that right there, because that's something that you help people with nonstop, right? Yeah. Is how do you learn about money? And what changes we should make inside of money so that we can, number one, actually acquire it, and number two, keep it, and number three, do really good stuff with it while we have it, right? So let's talk about kind of that, because that's what Money Ripples is really mainly about, right? Yeah. Helping educate. I mean, did 600 podcasts almost now. That's really what that show is about. When me and you talked about it, it was about money and how it works. Yeah. So let's talk about that. How do you help people when they come in wanting to know about money? What was your kind of angle there? If they're just starting out from the beginning, from scratch, right? I mean, most of the things taught about money, we have to undo. Sure. Right? Sure. We have to unsee it. Because I remember, when I started learning about money, my first time learning about money was actually becoming a financial advisor. Okay. Because I was planning to become your background was in financial planning. Yeah, I started that way. As a financial advisor with a ABC company. About 20 years ago, right? Wow. So I started out doing that. Now, the whole reason I started doing that is because my intention was to become a business consultant. Okay. Right? I was going to school. I was a sociology major with a triple minor in psychology, Japanese, and ballroom dancing. Right? Those are three unique. They totally go together. Out of a hat that you drew one day. Okay. So that's why I end up in money, right? Because it totally makes sense. Yeah. But those kind of things, right? I was going to school, but my whole goal was to become a business consultant. But I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, shouldn't I have real life business experience? Okay.
And so the first thing that came up as a business was become a financial advisor. I didn't know that all you had to do is pass a test and you get accepted. That's it.
It's like a real estate weekend class. I mean,
yeah.
It's not
I think real estate's harder. Yeah.
But that's really what it is. Like, it's not some like, you have to be a financial advisor. You have to have a 5-year degree. No, you don't. You just got to take a class and now you're approved.
Yeah. You don't even have to have a GED.
Crazy.
You can do it, right?
Crazy.
And that's the thing that kind of blew my mind. Now, I started learning about money, but the thing is, it was still nebulous to me, right?
Okay.
It still seemed hard to get.
Okay.
Because growing up, money always felt it was hard to get.
Sure.
And because like I was raised by parents, like my dad was like the ultimate saver, right? Like he saved everything to the point he hoarded everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has Mrs. Butterworth syrup since like 20 years ago because, hey, it's good at some point. One day he'll open up that bottle, right?
You may need it.
It might be a little fermented. I don't think it'll be like syrup. It'll be a different kind of syrup at that point. But that's the thing. Like he was that way, very ultimate saver. My mom was raised more kind of free-spirited entrepreneur. She was an artist, trained by the same guy that trained Bob Ross.
Wow, those are like really two different.
Two very different worlds, right?
Yeah.
And so, but neither of them really had mastered money.
Yeah.
So, and I was the first one to go to college in my family, and I was like, I'm going to be that guy. Well, I dropped out of college to become an entrepreneur with one class to go, right? That's it.
Wow.
One class for my bachelor's. It wasn't even a class. It was a paper I had to write.
Wow.
All I had to do is write the paper, get my 3 credits. I'd have a bachelor's in sociology, and then go get my MBA was the plan.
Okay.
But once I got the entrepreneur bug, I didn't want to go back. But again, I didn't know about money, and even as a financial advisor, it didn't make sense. Now, flash forward 4 years, I started to meet people that actually had money and made money, right? And and just like when you talk about this, money is, right? Like when everybody gives their answers, money is like, evidence of value, right? It's evidence that you deliver some sort of value or a promise you're gonna give value. Evidence of you're serving problems. Evidence that you're, really trying to add value in people's lives in a way that serves them or solves problems in a way that they want to give you money in exchange for those services.
Yeah.
It's a win-win transaction. But to me, in that scarcity world I was raised in, it was more like a zero-sum game, right? It was always about someone had to be screwed over so that I could win.
Right.
So if I was going to be a good person, if I was going to be a good advisor, you know what? I'm going to sacrifice myself. I'm going to cut my commissions back. I'm going to put you first. I'll go broke as a financial advisor, right? I'll be a guy that has no money, ironically, and then you'll be happy.
Yeah.
And that didn't work. Once I got it figured out that no, it's about how do I really serve people and solve the problems that they're asking, right? And showing up to serve that way, not trying to sell them crap, right? Which is really what financial advisors are. We're just salesmen in suits selling crap, right? Again, good-hearted people, just like I was. The problem was that it wasn't getting people wealthy. It wasn't teaching the real principles. All strategy, no principle. And the principle behind it was just really how do we go about serving people, creating value, and doing things in a way that people want to exchange money. They have to, because they want that in their life. They want it more than the dollars in their pocket. After that, money was easy.
Yeah.
And so if somebody just starting out, if they just figure that one thing, that dollars really do follow the value you create for other people, that it's evidence of value you've given or value you're going to give, right? It's easy.
It's so easy and simple that maybe it's the confusing part inside of it, because you don't grow up with money and you don't understand money like you're talking about, which I was the same way. And when someone's like, hey, if you want to have money, all you have to do is make sure you create value for others, and I promise you money will follow that. And it just seems so abnormal and like, it can't be that way. It's really not that way. But
Can't be that easy.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. I mean, life in business is about trying to add value to someone else's life as much as you can. And I think the other piece of it is you have to do it with a pure intent of nothing in return.
Yeah.
Inside of it, it has to be authentic help. A lot of times I see people that are trying to add value, but they're trying to add value because they want something back in return.
That's right.
It. And I mean, look, and I'm talking about myself. When I was going through all these phases growing up of money, that was a phase that I went through. Is like, okay, I'm gonna go help someone, but I had this angle that I really want out of this deal. But I'm gonna go
you have
do
that
this
agenda
first.
with it.
Yeah, I had this agenda with it, and I struggled a lot with it.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to a point that you made, because no one's ever made this point in the show, and I want to talk about it with you. I'm going to ask you a weird question never asked on the show, because this is a show of all news. This is the first time I've ever worn a hat on the show too, just so you know. So
this is the first time I haven't worn a T-shirt on a show.
So here we go.
So here we go.
First of a lot of things here. I've never asked this question before, and I don't care the answer, but I want to use it on a point that you brought up. Just broad stroke when it comes to, say, a religious background, belief system. Do you find yourself to be a person of faith or not of faith, or religious, not religious? What are you going to call?
I grew up sort of with faith, non-religious, and then became religious later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had this let's say religious. I grew up with a religious background, and still to this day, I say that I'm a person of faith.
Yeah.
You made a point that I've always felt was unique, and I've never talked about on the show, and I want to talk about when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And that is, as a kind of a person of faith, and you talk about you felt like growing up. If when you're a financial advisor, you had if in theory step on a person's back to get money in your pocket, you'd have to take advantage of the person.
Yep.
And that is, I think, a very big psychological standpoint that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
That the only way to get money is by taking advantage of, stepping on someone else's throat, etc. And I've never talked about that on the show.
That's a socialist argument right there.
It's very, but I think there's a psychological trigger there that people can't get past. I don't think they even know that it's there, but it's there.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about that point. Like in all your people that you've helped, how many of them do you think struggle with that concept of, but I got to take advantage of someone to go get money? How does that look like?
It's pretty common.
Is it?
It's common. I mean, everybody has their own different money stories, right? Everything that they're raised with. Because I was raised with, phrases like, "Come on, money doesn't grow on trees. What do you think I am made of money?" Right? All that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's definitely people that feel that way. They feel that they're really like someone has to win and someone has to lose, right? Always, it's a very common thing. And so a lot of times, especially people of faith, feel like they have to be the martyr. They have to be their own little, for lack of being blasphemous, their own like Jesus Christ
form of Jesus,
sacrifice.
We're made in His image, and so they like, I have to be Christ-like, and I'm going to suffer like I'm on the cross.
Exactly.
He didn't tell you to die on the cross.
They're like flogging themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly for money.
Yeah.
Or they'll take the lower side, if you will, and you can step on my throat, and I want to make sure you get ahead.
Oh yeah, and this is common with churches too. People are trying to run churches and get businesses of the church going, and then they go out of business, and they can't figure out why. Like, I'm probably just not a good business person because I'm not ruthless. I'm not someone who's willing to sacrifice other people. I'm not
going to screw someone else over.
I'm a good
money.
person. Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a huge psychological and emotional side there, and I think a lot of it does have to do with people in general. But I think anytime you have a religious faith background of any sort, I'm not saying just one, of any sort, there's kind of this like undertone theme that I think is there.
Money's the root of all evil.
About stepping on someone's throat. You got to screw someone to get ahead. Yeah. I think the answer, first, that is not true. That is a made up myth that is not true. And I think the actual truth of that is what you talked about. Yeah. Which is the way that money is created is by adding value. And if you're adding value, I promise you money will follow, and the people that pay you sincerely want to pay you. Are happy to pay you because you've added so much value to it.
That's right.
Do you think that's the answer? The flip side of that is
that is.
Dude, just add value.
It is. It really is. Like if you think about people talk about like money is evil, right? Yeah. But the truth is like what's if the root of money is like people talk about the love of money or the root of money is the root of all evil. Well, what's the root of money? Well, the root of money is value. It's serving people. It is solving problems. You wouldn't get that job unless you were solving some sort of problem for that employer, right? Otherwise, they would never give you the job. And they even pay you money because they believe you're worth at least a little bit more than that paycheck, or they would never hire you for that much money, right? They would fire you. They get rid of you. So think about it. Like you're actually showing up to do good. So if you're saying that the root of money is evil, yet money is good, you're actually saying that evil is good. Yeah. You're confused. Like you're contradicting yourself.
You're very confused into how money works.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to go make this a whole religious episode, but there's studies that have been done, and I've followed them and read up on them, that money is actually one of the most talked about things in the Bible. Yeah. Is actually money. Yeah. They talk about different forms of it, not just the word money, but the different forms of money is one of the most talked about things in Scripture is money.
Oh yeah.
And somehow we overlook all of that.
Solomon was evil.
Yeah,
you know,
like all
richest
of that
man in the world.
we ignore, but we hyper focus on that money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we use that as a way to justify being poor.
That's right.
I've said all for a very long time. I've said, I think sometimes we're just using it as justification as to like, well, I'm poor because I don't love money.
Right.
It's like, dude, it's not what that verse is talking about at all inside of there. But again, I don't want to go into the too religious side, but I saw when you brought that up, I've never talked about that the psychological or emotional standpoint of like feeling like you have to screw someone over.
Yeah.
And that's not true at all.
No.
That's a myth that subconsciously you created or you heard it from somebody. And the way that you actually create real money is by adding value to other people.
Yeah.
And money will follow that naturally. It's just it's a law of attraction. It's a law of the law of gravity. It's just how it works.
It's natural.
It's how it works.
It's that law of compensation, right?
Yeah,
Some people call it. It's true. I mean, I'll give you a real practical example, right? Like, so when I started to get this, right, I really focused on this in 2006 after I quit being a financial advisor. I kept on staying as a mortgage broker, right? So I was doing mortgages. Now, I would do the same thing all the time when I was a financial advisor. I would cut back that origination fee from the standard 1%, just like a realtor has 6%, right? I would have the standard 1%, cut it back to a 0.5% or even a 1/4% for my real estate investor friends, right?
Throw yourself on the altar.
Throw myself on the altar, right? It's like, I'll be the cheapest guy you'll ever find, like I'll give you the best deal, best rate, and I'll be cheap, Funny thing is that I still struggled. I still struggled to make money because I was fighting against that nature you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
The crazy thing is when I actually started going with the standard 1% and just focus on how do I serve people? How do I give them what they need, what they want, right? And the amazing thing is people were happier with me. They gave me more referrals. Even though you'd think it would be the opposite. No. It was not. Like, it was completely counterintuitive to what I thought. People actually were happier paying full price than they were paying a discounted price because they assumed I sucked. Right? Because why would you pay 0.5% to somebody? You must really suck or you must really be desperate. Either way, I don't want to do business with you.
Well, yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. I think it's such a great point because when you don't come from a lot of money, you don't have money. I think there's this myth that says everybody's trying to be, look for the cheapest discount out there because that's how you kind of grew up.
Yeah.
In reality, if I'm hiring, and I've done this before, when I've hired my real estate agent and it's a friend of mine, I want to support my friends, and it's a friend of mine. I literally went in and said, hey, look, I want to hire you, and right off the bat, like, I'm going to pay you 6%. I don't want a discount. Yeah. What I want is true service. Like, I want
the best.
You're a great real estate agent. I want you to be a great real estate agent, and just focus on that. And I think when that shift takes place, and you realize that what people actually want is value.
Yes.
Again, it's going back to your point, which is people want value. And when you no longer were cutting your rate, you know what you hyper focused on? Adding value. Because you're like, okay, I'm going to charge you the full percent, but I will find a way to add value to you no matter what. And you absolutely did, which is why people referred you and kept doing business with you because you brought value, brought cheap discount rates.
Exactly.
And again, it goes back to your value. And I'm going to tie this back all now into your answer. When you're magnifying and money is a magnifier, and when you are truly leading with value, it will magnify. That is what will come out of you is value. And when value comes out of you to other people, authentic value, bro, there's nothing, I think is the most priceless thing maybe on earth is true value, authentic value.
Absolutely.
All right, keep going through money ripples because I want to get a little bit more into the money side. And on the money ripples, again, you set out from broker, mortgage. Where does money ripples hit?
Yeah, so weird thing happened, right? So 2006, I started to realize, I had a conversation with a friend that was a real estate investor. He had left being a financial advisor to go do that. And this is the end of 2005. I call him up, wish him Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, And I was hoping what he would say is, oh, real estate's horrible right now. Can I work for you again, right? That's what I was hoping he would say. Exact opposite conversation. And those of you guys that are real estate investors, I know you get it, right? Because
2006, for sure they got it.
Oh yeah, 2006, you didn't even have to be good,
no,
right?
You're a genius in real estate.
Well, and that's what happened. He's like, in the last 4 months, my dad and I partnered on some deals, and we've doubled his income from what he's making as a professor at the local university here in Utah. I was like, come on, that's too good to be true, right? Which is what people tell me about the stuff I teach, right? They're like, Is that impossible?
Especially when you start breaking into infinite banking, it's like the immediate thing is, it's too good to be true. There's no way that exists.
No, there's gotta be a catch.
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's because you're used to crappy stuff. You get catches all the time.
Exactly.
But so he's like, no, it's awesome. And so we got this argument: what's better, stocks or real estate, right? And finally, he stopped me. He said, Chris, first off, what principles do you teach your clients? I'm like, what do you mean by principles? Rule 72, compound interest? He's like, no, not even close. The principles like this we just talked about, right? That's what he meant. He's like, okay, I'll dumb it down for you, Chris. How many of your clients are truly financially free, not off the not just retired, but really free? They don't worry about money.
Not right before they die, they're financially free.
Yeah, right. Not just because they have.
Your plan has them there at 65. Thanks, great.
Right, they're dying tomorrow. They have $10 left. Yay, free. Yeah, live off the ramen noodles, and that helped us last longer to die quicker, right?
Yeah.
But so he's like, no, not that. Like really free. And I said, well. None, because even the retired physicians, they're watching that CNN and stuff, communist news network, so that doesn't work. So no, none of them are free. Well, great job, Chris. Okay, Chris, how about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these mutual fund investments?
And dude, this is so good. So good.
And I was like, none? Maybe this one guy is?
So I want to go back because I want to make sure everybody understood what you just said.
Yeah.
He's asking you how many of your clients are fully financially free.
Yeah.
And I mean financially free now at 35 or 33 or 41 or 44.
Or 70.
Yeah. I have finally, after 40 years of working my tail off, have got to the point where now that I'm ready to retire, I can at least, on a budget, survive until I die.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But then he went a step further, which I love this question, which is how many of these financial advisors that are out there giving all this advice to everybody are actually financially free?
Not off the commissions.
No, that's just
and
a
then
job.
all the renewals they're getting and stuff, right?
Literally, took that advice, went and bought those mutual funds, and now they're financially free. The same mutual funds they're selling, they also put all their money into it, and now they're financially free.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
And there was guys in my office that have been working there since the late 70s.
Of course. It's almost like when you ever go to, of course, when you're poor, used to do this all the time. My vacations back in the day were surrounded by, we went on vacations when you could have a timeshare guy pitch you. Those where it's like, hey, you come to this 90-minute presentation, we'll give you 3 days at this resort. It's like, deal, I'm in. And but then it's funny because they're all like, oh man, the timeshare guys are just like, I moved here to Hawaii and I was just bored and I got this job part-time timesharing. I'm like, let me get this straight. You're bored, and what you decided to do was to sell timeshares.
Yeah.
That's what you went with? Not surfing, not parasailing, not a hobby. You went with part-time timeshare sales rep. Like, dude, it doesn't make any freaking sense on that side. And to me, that financial advisor, in quotations, has that same kind of feel to me.
Oh, yeah. It's
like,
absolutely.
Oh, money's so good. Well, why aren't you retired? Oh, I just love helping people. Okay,
yeah.
Sure, bud.
Sure you do.
What a great question.
And maybe they do, but they probably haven't made the connection that they're not creating wealth either, right? And I was already starting to have, the armor of confidence in financial advising was starting to be poked a little bit more, right? I was starting to lose it because I started to realize that the real rates of return, the real rates of return, what were they claiming? They were, right? They were saying 10, 12% for small cap stocks. So we always illustrated 12%. But in reality, I was like, no, it's more like 8. And that's before fees come out, right? And that's before taxes.
Gotta bring that one up.
Yeah, and it's not just a little difference. Like give you an example. There's a tweet by Dave Ramsey, right? That I had to get a screenshot of it because it's just too beautiful.
Okay.
And not because he's beautiful, but
I have a Dave Ramsey one I gotta share with you in my head, so don't let me forget. I'm gonna do
all right, we're gonna make sure we have a good Dave Ramsey session here. But so he did the thing that we even taught as financial advisors 20 years ago. He said, if everybody just saves $100 a month at 12% for 40 years, you should have $1.176 million. Everybody should retire a millionaire. That's what the tweet said, right?
Okay.
Well, first off, I calculated the 12%, $100 a month. It didn't even come out to be 1.176 million. It was 979,000. So they didn't retire as a millionaire. They were just they're short, which is kind of like financial advising: overpromise, underdeliver, right?
Yeah.
But then it was even worse.
My dating life, man.
Yeah, exactly. But even worse, like when I said, well, what if we ran it at 7%? When you factor in fees, even before taxes.
Yeah.
What if it's 7%? Well, that number went from, it didn't just go down a few percent. It went down from 979,000 down to about 370,000.
It plummets, yeah.
Yeah, so when you're expecting to be a millionaire or better than a millionaire, and then you get to retirement, you say, I saved my butt off for 40 years and this is it?
I did without. I sacrificed.
I
I wanted to do this.
I paid off my debt.
And the other thing that they never actually calculate a lot of those times on those long projections is, what about the years that the market crashes and we end up losing a ton of money?
Yeah.
Because you have to take like the the board of what the almost like averaged out interest actually is.
Yep.
Because what happens is so many times, you're going up with stocks. I'm not against stocks, right?
Yeah.
That's not my point. But you're going up, and then it crashes. And now you got to go all the way back up here just to get back to level playing field.
That's right.
And now keep growing. So even though when you're down here, they're saying you have 10% growth, right? But you're still not back to the level playing field of where you originally were.
That's right.
So the next X amount of years is just getting you of a 30-year projection. The next whatever it is, 6 years is just getting you back to par. Now you start growing again. Like that piece of it is always left out of calculation.
Yeah,
dude.
that average versus actual. That's the thing. They were showing the average of 10 or 12%, right?
Yeah.
But the actual was much less.
Yeah.
2008
crash.
Because you lose 50%, you lose half your money, you got to double it. Well, that's not 50, that's 100%. That doesn't equal to be the same number.
The crash in 2008, the average 401k lost 52% of their wealth. 52% in 2008, and the 401ks was lost. And it's like, okay, well, how do I make back 52%? That's an insane, they don't understand what you just talked about.
That's right.
It's an insane amount of money that you got to go make back there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let me tell you this Dave Ramsey one. I literally saw it this morning. It was funny what happened. I was on Instagram this morning, just scrolling through, and there was a guy sitting is this picture of him sitting in the tub. He was fully dressed, but he's sitting in this tub.
Thank goodness. I just had this big hairy guy in my mind. Yeah.
And the shower was on, and it was just hitting him, and he was sitting in this tub totally depressed, and it said, it was like flashing through the answers there, and it said, this is how I feel after I've been trying to save my 20% down payment for my house to get a 15-year mortgage that Dave Ramsey tells me. And my two buddies last year bought a house at 3% down on a 30-year fix, and have made $120,000 of equity so far within the last year. And it's kind of that difference of sides to it, right? Like, I mean, again, and real estate goes up, real estate goes down. I'm not saying real estate always goes up, but it's just understanding money and the market and how it works and doesn't work inside of it. But when you talk about Dave Ramsey, make you think of it. On that note, I don't want to have a Dave Ramsey bashing competition here, but let me ask you this legitimate question. What's your actual viewpoint, not so much on Dave Ramsey, but that style, let's call it, of investing or saving? I don't know if he's investing, but you get the point. But he's not the first one that ever created it. I mean, there's other people out there doing teaching the same philosophies.
But he's marketed it really well.
He's marketed it really well. Yeah. But what's your viewpoint of that kind of style right there of that side?
He's a great guy. In fact, my wife was actually the very first certified instructor in the state of Utah for Dave Ramsey, because they didn't want anybody from Utah, right?
Yeah,
they're all Southern Baptists, right? Yeah. Well, anyways, she gets accepted, and she goes sees his corporation. They drive by his house and everything. She's like, I'm starting to get to know him. He's not even practicing the things he teaches. Yeah. And she saw everybody else in that room, the other trainers. They were all broke pastors. And that's when she got the idea. She said, you know what? He's not talking to most of America. He's talking to the broke person that's making $30,000, $40,000 a year. The person's trying to get started, or the I call it the Spendaholics Anonymous people, right? Like people that just cannot control their spending. It's almost like a psychosis. He's great for them. So I think he's perfect. He's like when you went to college, there's that remedial course of math. That's what he is for money. Yep. But if you're at least average or better, middle class or above, and you want to be beyond middle class, you do not want to follow his advice.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that whole philosophy. I think there's a place for it, and for a certain group of people, and that don't have maybe a super ambitious drive of creating wealth and doing things with it, and that's totally fine. There's not everybody should be in that bucket. That's totally fine. I think for that group that fits in that bucket, dude, that's perfect, and you should go down you should go down that path. I have zero issues with that path when you're in that bucket. I think where I get frustrated at is when one of the disciples, if you will, comes and tries to tell other people that they should go do this, like people that are no longer fit in that bucket. Yeah, it'd be the same thing. Like if I went to a certain bucket and that bucket that they don't want to be in business. They don't want to create an entrepreneur. They don't want to go open things up and take risks. It's like risk makes them sick at their stomach. And dude, I totally get it. But it's like me going to that group and then me telling them that they're wrong for not doing all the stuff that I do over here with investing and so forth. It's
exactly.
Like, dude, we're two different people. So I've always felt like there's a purpose for it. I just get frustrated when the disciples come on Facebook and start telling me or people on this side of what to go do. I'm like, dude, it's freaking pound sand, dude. Like
major place of judgment. Yeah. It's horrible. I mean, it really has become like this mob mentality. Here's what's crazy is that, you know, he'll say things like, everybody's a spender, be the minority, be the saver. The crazy thing is, I thought, let's research that. Because the one thing that Dave Ramsey doesn't do is ever check his facts. Ever, right? I mean, he's still telling stuff that I found out as a financial advisor was wrong 20 years ago.
Wow.
Even when I was teaching like him, I was like, oh, that's not even true, Dave. You know, even when I agreed with him, I didn't agree with him, right? But the problem is this, is that most people are actually savers, not spenders. Because if you look at like stats, for example, 401ks, right? Of the 401k plans out there, 52% of people actually that are eligible save in those plans. 52%. Now that's people like us that may not want to put in money in those plans because you're going to do other things. You're going to go buy real estate or do some other stuff with that, right? These are people that just may say, I need to pay off my debt first. They're doing the wise thing. Maybe they have massive amounts of debt. They should pay off rather than putting the money in the 401k, which is weird when I see people that are the opposite. They put money in the 401k and can't pay off their debt, right? But like that kind of stuff. So that would imply more than half of people are saving in 401ks. That want to be saving. That means most people are savers, not spenders. Because spenders don't put money in 401ks. No. They don't even put money in a savings account that they can go and touch and spend later, right? They won't put money in 401ks. So to say that everybody's a spender, we're the best, you know, it's self-righteous judgment. It's not true. The problem is this, is that the poster children of Dave Ramsey come to us later on and say, Chris, you know, we're asset rich and cash poor. We did everything Dave said. We paid off our debt. We saved up lots and lots of money, $100,000, if not millions of dollars, and we don't have a dime to show for it of income. We don't have any real income. That's the problem, right? And that's those poster children of Dave's come to me and say, I'm not free.
Okay, let's talk about that point because that's a unique point there. Meaning they're missing what I call a rule of money, right? One of the best answers that I love that I talk about a lot on the show is money is a game. It's a game. And you have to understand the rules of that game. And if you understand the rules of the game, it's very hard to ever win it at any game that you play. If you don't understand, you can't win at kickball, dodgeball. If you don't understand that you're not supposed to get hit with the ball. If you don't understand that rule of dodgeball, you're going to suck at dodgeball.
Right.
Like it's elementary, but those are the rules. Money's a game, and there's rules to the game. And I think one of them is understand the rule of cash flow.
Absolutely.
That's a massive rule that a lot of people miss out on. And literally going to your point of what you're saying, that when you know, this philosophy of Dave Ramsey's style teaching, they come to you later and say, I have this and this and this, I'm debt free, but I'm not financially free yet. How do I do it? And
I don't have income coming in from it.
That piece right there.
Cash flow.
Talk about that piece for a second.
Yeah, I should have ordered a t-shirt. Cash flow equals freedom. That's one of my t-shirts, right? Because it is. Like, if you don't have money coming from, that's the whole reason people save in retirement plans in the first place. They hope that someday it turns into some kind of income stream.
Right.
The problem is that in the financial advising world, they don't really address it well enough. Because, you know, it used to be that people would say, well, if you save up X amount of dollars, then you live on 4%, the whole 4% rule, right? The problem is, even 20 years ago, we were questioning that rule because we said, you know, that might be too much because interest rates are coming down, inflation's going up.
What about now?
We might need like 2 or 3%. And so even my personal goal was save $2 million, live on 3%, because that would mean I could live on $60,000 a year or $5,000 a month. I thought $5,000 a month 20 years ago was amazing.
Yeah, just out of this world.
Yeah, I didn't realize that now it's like poverty almost, you know, depending on where you live.
Especially with inflation.
Especially with inflation, right? But that was my whole goal. 40 years old, if I save up $2 million, if I really am good disciplined saver, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everybody's trying to do. The thing is, if you live on 2 or 3%, say you save $1 million, you're living on $20,000 or $30,000 a year before taxes.
Right.
You're a broke millionaire. You're living below poverty. You're not even at the poverty line, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's horrible. And so that cash flow thing was the thing that rocked my world in 2006, because when all said and it was like, no, it's about passive income. How do you create income? It wasn't just about saving and accumulating money. That's the accumulation theory, as I call it, right? Versus the acceleration cash flow theory, which is No, how can I get this money to pay me money, right? Because like what blows people's minds is, what if I had $1 million, right? Well, okay, if I want to live off 3%, that's $30,000 a year. But what if that paid me 1% a month?
Yeah.
Now that's paying me $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year. Very different life, very different scenario. And understand that I was losing hope as a financial advisor. When that made sense, and I realized there's this whole alternative investment space, like in real estate and other places you can invest in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was missing as a financial advisor, because I would have to, make my inflation numbers really tiny.
Sure.
So it wouldn't look too depressing to them down the road, because they basically would never hit their goals when I put real rates of return in there, like 8% or less. By the way, 30-year average, the last 30 years with 13 years up in a row, which is a record in the stock market, still 8.4%.
That's the average.
That's an actual average return of the market.
And is that based off of, if you took the last 30 years, each year would it averaged out, up years, down years, and it averaged out to be 8%?
Yeah, basically take the S&P, like what was it, 30 years ago in 1991, compare it to 2021 at the same date, and then compound interest calculator showing that. And it's about an 8.4% return as of now. This could be different when you watch this, but
we talk about cash flow for a second. I think it's a piece that people miss, because again, you could have this accumulation game of, hey, I got $1 million in my 401k, which again, the amount of people that have $1 million in their 401k is very, very slim. Actually.
Very small number.
Very small amount when we talk about that.
Average retiree is $250,000 right now.
That's what's floating in their accounts.
Yeah.
But when you talk about cash flow is almost not almost. It is the exact opposite of accumulation of cash. Cash flow is about making that money go to work for you. I would look at it as almost money as employees to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And my job is to make sure, as a manager, CEO, make sure my employees are producing at the rate that we should be producing at. Growth is happening at the growth that it should happen at.
Yeah.
And money is the same way. I have my job as the CEO of my money is to make my money go to work.
Yeah.
And that's where cash flow is generated from, is when my money, because now all of a sudden I could have, quote unquote, 10 employees, 20 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees of cash, and all that's going to work and then coming back with more money, returns of cash flow coming back from it.
Yeah.
Accumulation is basically not making your money go to work and allowing it to sit on the sidelines.
They're government employees.
Yeah.
They sit around and
it takes 20 people to do one thing inside of it. So when you talk about cash flow, just for a little bit for the audience here, what angles do you see there, like as examples? Is it about real estate? I mean, the other ways to get cash flow. Is it real estate, oil? I've heard you talk about oil, crypto. What are some of the ones that you see common that people should be looking into when they want to create cash flow?
There are so many ways you can create cash flow, right? But I like people to go with what I call as conservative, right? Low risk, high returns, right? Because everybody believes that high risk creates high returns.
That does actually, I promise that does not work.
Mathematically, it makes no sense. No. Why would a 90% chance of losing, that's the definition of risk, is chance of loss.
Right.
When does a 90% chance of losing become a 90% chance of winning?
The math, it does not equal math, people. When you say higher the risk, higher the return, what are you freaking talking about?
Yeah, it's just, that's what people tell you, so that wants you to take all the risks so they can take none of it.
Yeah.
Namely, financial institutions, right? That are holding your money. They get the guaranteed fees while you have to take all the risk in the markets, right? So I like low risk, high returns. That sounds, some people say, you can't say that.
That's impossible.
You shouldn't say that on video. Like, no, but it's true. Like it's so much different. And so, real estate's definitely one. And people will say, oh, real estate's too high, too hot. We're not worried about appreciation, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about cash flow. How can we get regular, predictable, stable income coming in, right?
Yeah.
So, that's where we might have things like turnkey properties. You might do things where you pool money together, buy into apartment buildings or self-storage units or whatever it might be, right? But there's also other things, like you mentioned oil. Like oil, now usually that's more speculative, but there are some groups out there that will do it where they pay more on a regular basis, pay you regular, stable cash flow on it. Businesses. Business is another great one. I think business and real estate are some of the two best assets. And if you're in both, you're, I think, some of the best asset classes you can ever be in.
Yeah.
Business can be amazing. I mean, people, if they want to be more passive, you can do franchise, do those kind of opportunities. There's all the e-commerce stuff you can do now with online businesses. There's so much you can do.
Yeah.
But usually people that talk to us, they're looking for the passive. They're saying, I'm busy with my own business, or I'm busy with my job.
Yeah.
How do I get my money working for me? And so that's why we usually look at like real estate, maybe some oil, those kind of things as options of things that are outside of what financial advisors offer.
Right.
Because none of this is offered. You might say, oh, I do REITs in real estate. No, REITs is not real estate. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even close.
I love when they say the REITs.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
It's a great one. And when I hear real estate people say, well, I got some REITs, I'm like, why would you do that? You're a real estate guy.
Yeah.
Like, you should be buying your crap. You know, you should be buying the stuff that you make the best money on, right?
Let me ask you this question. I want to switch the gears for a second and talk about entrepreneurship with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, even though your entrepreneurship is basically money, you're an entrepreneur. You started a business. You employ people. You have created jobs, created value on planet Earth where, in a way, when it comes to economy. I want to talk about entrepreneurship for a second. A lot of entrepreneurs listening. I want to hit the question that I love talking about, which is, what are some of the, give us maybe an example of a big hard problem you had to go through, a failure you had to go through. It doesn't mean failure like you lost everything, unless that's the failure. I went through losing everything, but what give us an example of a failure, and then what did you learn inside of that failure? Like, how did you use that failure to grow inside of it? Because as you know, entrepreneurship is riddled with obstacles and struggles and failures, and it's the ones that survive are the ones that have learned how to go through that and come out better on the other end. Give us an example of maybe a failure you had to go through or an obstacle, and then what did you learn inside of that?
You're just going right along my timeline, aren't you? So 2006, I left that whole thing, right? And but by the summer, because I started learning and applying this stuff and cash flow and creating value, all this stuff, I was actually able to become financially independent by the time I was almost 29, 28 years old, almost 29, by the summer of 2006. So I'm like, what am I gonna do with my life? What am I gonna be when I grow up, right? All my friends in their 20s were working jobs, so I was kind of lonely.
Yeah, sure.
Well, eventually came out, I was like, I want to teach people. I know, and even if I didn't want to, people still want to know how I did it.
Sure.
When they would ask me, what do you do, Chris? I'm like, I sell drugs.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how do I describe creating passive income and creating residual streams of income even through business? Because I quit being a financial advisor. I was doing mortgages, but I learned I hated paperwork.
Yeah.
And so one of those millionaire friends gave me the idea, it's like, just refer to a guy that's a nerd. Let him do it all. And I'm like, wait, I will get paid? I can split it? There's an abundant world that we can actually have a win-win transaction? What? And so I was working a couple hours a week. I was literally living like a 3 or 4 hour work week before Tim wrote his book, right?
Tim
Ferriss. Yeah. So anyways, I was like trying to figure out what to do. What's that next step? That's where I actually partnered up with a guy named Garrett Gunderson, who you've had on this show before too, right?
Sure.
So we created a company together called Freedom Fast Track, and we were teaching people how to get out of the rat race. Recession hits us, and guess what? We're back in the rat race. Right? And it wasn't just a little bit, because I put a lot of my money into that business to get it going too. And here's the thing, to be a team player, he's like, I want you all in. Yeah, don't cut off, get rid of all these other ventures and streams of income, just focus on this, our company, our mission. Well, so I lose all my streams of income. That's one lesson. Do not ever cut off your streams of income.
I did that earlier. What a mistake that was.
Horrible mistake. If I was leaving what I was preaching, shouldn't I be keeping those streams of income going? Because we're teaching people how to get out of the rat race. I should make sure I stay out of the rat race, right? Well, long story short, I find myself going from millionaire to upside down millionaire within about a year or so. I was about $16,000 in the hole each month between personal and business expenses, and over $1 million in debt. And I was like, how am I going to get myself out of this hole? I have no money left. I used up all my savings, no credit, and then nobody wanted to touch me. By the way, I just got that little Credit Karma alert that says, hey, happy anniversary. In 2010, you had a 510 credit score. I'm like, that's like somebody that wrote their name correctly on an SAT, barely, right?
Yeah, that's 510.
That was me. That was a 510 there. And so I was in shambles, right? And also, I'll deal with the mental trash of feeling like I was out of integrity. So I stopped teaching people how to get out of the rat race. I had to start teaching people instead how to get resourceful, because that's what I was doing, right? So I started going through this big low. I didn't file for bankruptcy, but man, it was a long, hard road. It took me till the end of 2016 to get back out of the rat race and doing it better the second time, to do it that time around. And so lessons, right, that came from that.
What were the lessons?
One is that your mental state is the most important, right? That keeping that abundance mindset, keeping that hope going. I'll tell you, there were so many days that I wanted to just crawl in a corner and pee all over myself, pretty much, right? Just just be like, I can't even want to leave my bed because I feel like I was losing a battle. So one of the big disciplines that I did during that time is I did like Tony Robbins calls it the hour of power, morning ritual, miracle morning, whatever people want to call it, right? I was doing a morning routine where I call it the 3 E's, exercise, education, and enlightenment, right? Okay. So exercise is getting up, at least moving my body, even if it's just a walk, just to get my blood pumping a little bit. And I had to do that because I couldn't do the enlightenment stuff without falling asleep. Like, you can't do, meditation very well with your eyes closed. You're like, falling out, passing out. So I had to get exercise first, but then I would listen to things. I would listen to audiobooks. I remember listening to 3 Feet from Gold by my friends Greg Reed and Sharon Lechter, right? Great book if you're struggling. I read Trump's Never Give Up, one of probably the more humble books of Trump's that he wrote, where he talks about his failures, I was trying to get inspired by that. Anything to kind of last. Those were huge for me. It's just doing those morning routines, trying to get a win in the beginning of the day.
And that was your enlightenment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's education, with learning things, and then enlightenment was like, I would do prayers of gratitude, meditation.
Education was the books and so forth, and then enlightenment was meditation, pondering.
Yeah, reading scriptures, praying, all that stuff. Like everything just to get into it. It could be journal writing, whatever, right? All those things, just to try to get in the right state so that I had a win from the beginning of the day. Even though I felt like a loser, and I mean, I lost my house. I had my little McMansion, and then
I did it too. Yeah, I lost it.
Yeah, I mean, 2009. I remember it was mid-April, right? It was the week before my 4th child was going to be born. A guy knocks on the door, and we had so many threats before, but unfortunately, they would never take our offers because it was Lehman Brothers, so they would foreclose on us first. A guy knocks on the door, and says, "Hey, I just bought your house at auction a half hour ago. When can you get out?" And we're like, "We're about to have a baby. Like, we can't do that." And so we paid him $2,000 to stay for 2 more weeks, and had the baby, scrambled, found a place to rent that was like a quarter of the price.
Sure.
And we moved, with postpartum and everything.
For sure.
It was a hard time. I mean, it was hard crushing ego-wise too. I mean, that's a beautiful thing, is that I don't ever wish anybody would go through a hard struggle like that where you go broke. But if there's any benefit that I got, it was the fact that I had to detach from stuff. Because, I mean, I basically had to sell off everything. I mean, I turned in my Mercedes. I said, "You guys are going to repossess this anyways. Just take it." And then, of course, the worst thing is they auction it off, and then it's like $30,000 upside down. So the collector calls you and says, "Hey, can you pay this $30,000?" I'm like, "Well, no, that's why I gave it back."
I gave it back to you.
He's like, "Well, can you make monthly payments of $1,200 a month?" I'm like, "You realize that was my monthly payment before. If I could have made those monthly payments, I would have kept my car."
That's
right?
you driving right now, you idiot.
And I remember the guy said, it was late at night. I was burning the midnight oil and stuff, just trying to dig myself out of the situation. And the guy is saying, like, "You know what? This is what's wrong with America. This is why the country's in such a problem right now. It's because people like you that are just not paying their bills."
Yeah.
I'm like, "People like me, buddy, I paid your bills. Like, I employed plenty of people, paid 6 figures to employ people just like you. Don't you dare lecture me about me not being able to, provide, or that I'm killing this country."
Yeah.
And I just hung up the phone. And then, of course, the next day they called anyways.
Yeah, call you right back. Different phone number.
Yeah. Now that was the bitter time. Like eventually by 2009, the thing is I started to shift the mindset. I started recontextualizing everything, because I was like, you know what? I don't know why, but I know principles work. I know that I'm creating value. I'm helping people find money. I'm not teaching them how to get out of a rat race, because that would be out of integrity. I cannot teach anything. I'm a horrible liar. I cannot teach anything that I don't do, right? So I was teaching them how to find money, just like I was. And there was a place for that because people were looking for it. So I was solving a problem there. So I was trying to create value still. But focusing on the principles. I knew, I didn't care if it took 20 years. I'm like, if I just keep applying these principles, this will work. And wouldn't it be cool if I could get out of the rat race twice? Because if I do it twice, that means this actually works. It's not just I got lucky in 2006, but this actually works. And so that hope just kind of kept me going. I was burning on those fumes of faith, right? And I was recontextualizing everything. Even though all the calls were massive. I mean, my friends stopped calling me, but those collectors would call faithfully every day. So when I answered the phone, I answered like I was a friend. I'd call, I'd be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're like, "Yes, we're here to collect a debt. This call may be recorded for quality purposes. We were calling about this credit card, or we're calling about the car, or whatever it might be." "Yeah." "Okay, are you going to pay it?" "No, but I will someday." "When are you going to pay it?" "No clue." "Okay, do you have any idea?" "Nope, but I know I'll pay you." "All right, well, we're going to call back tomorrow." I hope so, because my friends stopped calling, and I hung up, and they would call back.
I have, man.
I know, I had to. I had to get through all that, and I did. Eventually, the great thing is that persistence paid off, right? And that's the thing is I never gave up. I kept perfecting my craft. Eventually, the right relationships showed up for Garrett and I. We have these chiropractors and dentists show up, and our business went from almost bankrupt to like making millions the next year. Yeah. And that sort of helped me dig out of that hole too. And so that persistence and patience, trusting in principles, not, giving up because, things are just too hard, but just keep trying.
Yeah, I think that, there's ingredients that make great entrepreneurs. Just like in anything else, there's ingredients that makes great athletes and so forth.
Yeah.
And in entrepreneurship, I think there's definitely ingredients that makes up entrepreneurs successful. Mm-hmm. And one of them that people could say there's this or that or whatever it is. Ingredients, but one of them that I think every entrepreneur that's ever built anything as an entrepreneur would tell you is that one of the guaranteed common denominator ingredients is what you're talking about, that grit, determination, persistence of drive, good, bad, ugly is just drive.
Yeah.
Grind it out and go figure this thing out, right?
Yep.
And without that ingredient, I don't think entrepreneurs exist. Like you have to have that in your core belief system of persistent drive, keep going, keep pushing, keep going, keep going, and eventually by going back to what we talked about this whole show, by adding value, that eventually it comes back around.
It does
to you. But
always.
I think that persistence, what you're talking about, is a ingredient you'll find in every entrepreneur that's ever existed. You'll find the ingredient of grit, or whatever you want to call it, determination, persistence. You'll find it, and I think you'll find a lot of it.
Yeah.
In that ingredient measuring cup, if you will.
Yeah. Like I call it karmic debt, right? Like if you really try to create so much value and try to do so much good in the world that it has to come back.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, you have an agenda. It's not that far off. But the difference is instead of expecting a certain outcome, just say, I'm just going to do it because I know one way or another, something comes back always.
That's not an agenda, right?
Yeah, that's not an
agenda. The law of attraction.
Yeah.
I believe that if I just add value, authentic true value, not that I'm wanting that person to do something for me. I used to have that agenda. Yeah. And I was like, okay, if I do this and this for Chris, then he'll probably do this and this for me. And that's the wrong agenda. That's the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah.
Adding value is saying, I'm going to add value to you. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that somewhere in the atmosphere of karma, faith, belief, whatever it is, that it all comes back in some way or another. It's gonna take place. But I'm not expecting you to be that person to do it. I just know that the law of attraction, that if I go do stuff authentically for other people, that eventually my doors will be opened.
That's right. I mean, you're living
the way it works.
And you live that. That's the thing. Even before we went on the air here, right? You were doing that stuff for me. And it kind of took me back because 2012, I started Money Ripples, right? I broke off and started it. And about a year later, I went through this little lull. Just people were not, coming in as clients. It was just slow. And I remember lamenting to one of my friends. I was just like, I feel like people aren't exchanging, because exchange creates wealth is another principle, right? The faster people are exchanging value and stuff with one another, the more prosperous everybody becomes. And so I was just getting frustrated. I'm like, yeah, people aren't doing it. It's like they're stuck. And then I realized, I'm like, you know what? I can either whine about this or I can be that example. And so I told her, okay, I know what I need to do. So I remember I wrote a blog post on my website, right? I was saying here's the 5 areas of entrepreneurship that you need to address. Things like, business operations in general, marketing or sales, right? Finances. Of course, I put myself in finances, right? But I put my competitors on there too. That's the crazy thing. I put competitors. I say, hey, if you want this, they do better at this than I do, right?
Sure.
And I would just put all these people. I say, here's great business coaches. I just put a whole list of people. It was 13 people I put on those lists. I said, here's people you should talk to. And then I tagged them on social media, said, hey, this blog post is about you guys. You guys should check, everybody, you should check these people out. Guess how many referrals I got from those people?
The referrals from the
people I recommended. Yeah. 0. 0 referrals. The cool thing is, the next month, my company broke a revenue record. Huge, broke it from nothing that they did. And that's why I call it karmic debt, right? It's you're trying to build up so much karma that the universe has to pay you back because it's indebted to you.
It's just how it works.
It's just how it works.
There's no way around it. I say all the time on the show, and we've been talking about this the whole day here because it has to do with money. Is you can either play this game and do it this way, or I don't know. Don't play the game with me, because this is beyond a doubt of how I know for a fact it works. Just go do good value for other people, and it will come back. Let me ask you this on the money ripples. We're coming to the end here, but I want to hit on money ripples. When someone's finds you guys, they come across this podcast. You've done 600 of your own podcasts that you got out there. The 600 are ones not that you've been on, 600 you've hosted, right? And then you've been on probably that many or more,
hundreds
of guests there. When people are coming into kind of the ecosystem of money ripples, where is it that you feel like, how do they find where they get started at? Because they come in at different levels and different places. How do they kind of find that start where they can connect with Chris and say, okay, here's where I fit in at, here's where I can kind of move forward, because we're all different.
Yeah, there's a few different ways. I mean, I always invite people to check out our show, the Chris Miles Money Show, right? Because we talk about different levels of things, that are there. And so there's something for everybody. It's to some level, right? Another cool thing is we created a calculator on our website on moneyripples.com. It's a passive income calculator saying how much more passive income can you create in your situation in the next 12 months. And so there we actually say, hey, if you can make over 20,000, great, you should talk to us about one-on-one. If it's less than that, hey, here's an online trading program that's more economical, but because we want to make sure we always give more value than we receive, right? So like even when we take somebody on as a one-on-one client, we want to make sure we at least double the results of whatever they pay us that year, right? And that's not including the ongoing year after year.
That's how all financial advisors do it.
Yeah, that's the way it should be, right? It's bad. Like when I had somebody come to me recently, she's like, it's bad. Like I realized I had to reach out to you, Chris, because my financial advisor with this big company I won't name, she's like, I went to call him and say, I want to get my money out of these accounts because they only made 4% when the market did 16. And they said, I'm sorry, he's out golfing in Scotland. She's like, and that's why I need to get my money out. He's making more money than I am, right? And that's not right. Like you should be the hero of your own story, not the advisor. You should be the one in control of your money, not the advisor, right? That you're the boss. You're the CEO of your life.
You have to be CEO of your money.
Yes,
you absolutely have to. Last thing I kind of got for you here is I thought that as I kind of thought through it, because I always sometimes I kind of play around and think of what people's answer is going to be for the money is, and I thought maybe you're going to go with money is ripples because of your company.
Yeah. I thought of it. I did think about it.
And it actually is a really, really great answer.
It is.
That's why I love moneyripples.com. I actually love what it stands for, like what it actually means behind it. I want to wrap up the show actually talking about that kind of answer of money is ripples, if you will.
Yeah.
Because I think the things that you learn, the things that you teach, the things that people can apply, it has, especially when it comes to money, it has a rippled effect to it.
Yeah.
That goes down actually a long, long ways. I want to talk about rippled effect with money and kind of wrap up the show with that. What does that mean to you when you say moneyripples.com or money is ripples? What does that mean?
Yeah, I remember I was out for a run. I'm actually a marathoner now. So got rid of the ballroom dancing, went to marathons. I got to do something, right? And I was out for a run. And I was trying to think of the name. I was thinking like cash flow this or that, right? But nothing was quite clicking. And then I thought, well, let me think of the vision of what I see. And I remember, thinking of the vision of like some of the clients I'd already worked with, right? Like, worked with hundreds of like chiropractors and dentists and people. And I remember one couple in particular, they were from North Dakota. And for them, we actually freed up, not even doing investing, just finding money, freed up $6,000 a month. And I remember like the first thing they did with that $6,000 they freed up is he bought a four-wheeler, which would totally make Dave Ramsey roll in his grave. Well, roll in his grave in the future, right? But it would just totally tick him off. But understand, his wife said, Chris, you don't understand, like that four-wheeler means everything to us because he would work Monday through Saturday. He would never take a day off, hardly. And even when he did take it off, he was exhausted. Now he's taking off Saturdays, and every weekend we use that four-wheeler, we work together as a family, and she's crying. She's like, that, I got my husband back because of that money. That, and I picture that, I was like, imagine what that's doing for their family, first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, what kind of ripple effect is that creating through generations? Like creating a new pattern for his kids about money, not a bad thing, where they view it as a bad, stressful thing, but now it's an amazing thing. And also what that does for the community, the people around them, and the country, and ultimately across the world. And that's when that name Money Ripples came to my mind, is that ripple effect of prosperity and freedom and cash flow that happens when people have that. And you have to be liberated. If people aren't liberated, they can't help liberate others, right? We get so self-focused. I mean, I hate it as a financial advisor when people tell me, I'm like, why do you want to be free? They said, well, I want to be able just to take care of my family. I just want enough to pay the bills. And I didn't say it at the time, but now I say it boldly. I'm like, that's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. If all you're thinking about is, I just want to pay my bills and take care of my family, okay, that's great. That's noble for your family. But you're so much more than that. You have a legacy that could be so much bigger than just taking care of your family. Yeah. And that's what we've been taught. We've been taught survival. But no, if you're financially free, and you know this, I mean, we've lived this life, right? You can do so much more. It is a magnifier of your soul, right? It allows you to expand and impact people's lives in such a way that nobody else can. Yeah. And that's the kind of ripple effect I want to see. That's why by 2030, I want at least 1,000 people financially independent saying, let me just make massive blessings in people's lives, like just really change the world that one family at a time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I think there's such a cool play, and I'm a branding guy, so I love what you did with it. And I think people don't calculate and don't count into the picture when they're with their financial so-called advisor. Yeah. Of what good money brings, and what good money has the possibility to bring, and it has that ripple effect of exactly the example you gave of when you have money and you buy that four-wheeler in that case. What does that do for your husband and wife relationship? And I'm not saying that it's all materialistic things, but I know that when I do periodically buy something for my partner, unannounced, not on their birthday, just I'm showing a thing of love and gratitude. Yeah, it goes a long ways, and it builds that relationship stronger. And money just has that rippled effect of then when their relationship as a husband and wife is stronger, then what happens to the children's relationship? Yes. And how does that affect them? If mom and dad are stressed and pissed off and they're fighting, then the kids see it's fighting, and then it leads into generationals of fighting. And money has that just constant rippled effect that I just don't think on the financial advisor spreadsheet that they ever account for that effect of it. It's never looked at, right? It's always, and it's a piece of why when it comes to when the other mainstream save your way, when they come on my side to try to tell me what I'm doing wrong, it's like, dude, to tell someone that's already living paycheck by paycheck, that's already stressed out their brain, that's already maxed out, that already isn't enjoying simple things of going out to eat with their family and because they can't afford it, and then you're telling that person, okay, what I want you to do is live poor. Yeah. It's like, wait, what? You want me to cut back more? And I think that there has to be life that is about enjoyment. Yeah. Another great answer is money is experiences. Money can create experiences. And I don't care what you say. I have taken my family on vacations, my outer family on vacations, that I paid for all of it. And you talk about memories and experiences and connections and rejuvenating just our family's values and just time we spent together. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but money is what created that. And money creates experiences, right? And absolutely. And people are missing out on things that they should be doing because they don't calculate that into it. They just look at it and say, let me accumulate until I die. Yeah. And it's the total wrong approach to it. So I want to get your input on that money ripple, because I think I love your branding in general, and of course the philosophy of what you teach is dead in line with what I believe. So I just want to hit that with you, Chris. I love talking on the show with you. It's been a tremendous show. It's one of our longer shows that I've done. I figured it would be because I enjoy the true conversation about money. Yeah. And I think it's one of the whole reasons, if you go back to our tagline on money is it's having authentic conversations about money. And we can have different opinions, and I would literally bring in a Dave Ramsey person and have no problem talking to him. And I just want to have an authentic, at least if we're having an authentic conversation, I think good can come from it. So I love having you on the show, man. Hopefully we have you back, get you more involved here. On that note, guys, I hope you enjoyed watching the Money-ish Show this week, and we'll see you next week on the Money-ish Show. This was with Chris Miles right here from Draper / Mapleton, Utah.